Hello and welcome to a Channel 8 News election special on BayTV. I'm Carwyn Evans. Today's top story. Theresa May's decision to call a snap election hasn't gone to plan, as the Conservative Party were unable to get a majority number of seats in Westminster, meaning Great Britain woke up to a hung parliament. The Conservative Party won the most seats by winning 318. Theresa May is attending a meeting at the Palace, hoping to set up a government with a DUP from Northern Ireland. Meanwhile, here in Swansea, it was an eventful night as the Labour Party won Swansea West, Swansea East and regained Gower from the Conservatives. And it's in the Gower we'll start, as Tonia Antionazzi was elected with a majority of 3,269 votes over former Member of Parliament Byron Davies. Here is a roundup from the declaration.
Antionazzi, Tonia, Welsh Labour.
Llafur Cymru, 22,727.
22,700. That is 22,727. Davies, Byron, Welsh Conservative Party candidate.
Ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 19,458.
19,400.
And I promise to you that with every fibre of my body I will work tirelessly to give you the representation that you and your family deserve. I will listen and act. I want to bring the often dusty politics of Westminster alive, involving people in discussion, decision making and challenging ideas and the status quo.
Tonia Antionazzi MP. How does that
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Must be thrilled all the hard work paying off.
Yeah, it's been a really hard 6 weeks. You know, we fought a really good battle and we've won, and we've returned another Labour MP for Swansea, and that's the way it should be.
And obviously last time, it was on the 27 majority. Tonight, you've won with a 3,269 majority. Shows that people of Gower have put their faith in you and are happy to see you represent them.
Yeah, and the Gower constituency is very wide and varied. It runs from Clydach down to Rossilly, and I think it's really important now that I work with all the constituents to deliver for them.
And Swansea Council Labour, Assembly members Labour, and now they've got 3 MPs as Labour. Labour in Swansea strong as ever, surely?
Yeah, strong as ever, and we will deliver. We are delivering, the council are delivering, and we're going to make sure that we get the tidal lagoon, we're going to make sure that rail electrification comes down and we get the investment we deserve in light of Brexit.
Swansea West was another seat where there was a lot of interest prior to the election, with Labour MP Geraint Davies admitting it was going to be close between himself and the Conservative candidate Craig Lawton. As it turned out, Mr Davies not only increased his vote, but he also increased his majority by an extra 3,500 votes. Here is a clip of his declaration.
Davies Geraint, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 22,278. 22,278. Lawton, Craig James Robert, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, Ymgeisydd Plaid Geidwadol Cymru, 21,680. 11,680. Rwyf drwy hyn yn datgan bod, and I hereby declare that Geraint Davies wedi ei iawn hethol has been duly elected. Diolch yn fawr.
I'd like to thank the returning officer, all those who are involved in this count tonight. What happened in this election was, of course, UKIP withdrew and the Tories were going to combine their vote, and we thought we had a fight on our hands. We did have a fight on our hands, and we smashed them. The reality is
thoughts on such a comprehensive victory?
Well, we thought it would be a tough fight because UKIP weren't standing and they were going to combine forces with the Conservatives to try and get rid of Labour. But in fact, the Labour vote's gone up 50%, the majority's up 50%. There's a clear vote of confidence for the people of Swansea that they want a stronger economy and a fairer society. They don't want fracking. They do want rail electrification to Swansea, not leaving it at Cardiff, as the Tories have now said, following a U-turn after David Cameron promised to bring it to Swansea. They clearly want the lagoon. Again, the Tories were backpedalling on that. And most importantly, in the Brexit negotiations, they want to defend 25,000 jobs in Swansea Bay, so we keep access to the European market without tariffs. And importantly, of course, they want a fairer society as well. You know, we've had enough of the poorest taking the hardship from the bankers' irresponsibility. So we don't want to see food banks, 0 hours, and all the rest of it. We want to invest in a productive economy, and that includes giving people tuition fees so they aren't saddled with debt, so we can become more productive, move together towards a stronger economy with a fair share for all.
Staying with Swansea and in Swansea East, Labour MP Carolyn Harris secured a full house of MPs for Labour in Swansea as she increased the majority by over 1,000 votes and also increasing a vote by almost 5,000. Here is a clip of a speech.
Harris Carolyn, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 22,307, 22,307. Ac yr wyf drwy hyn yn datgan bod, and I hereby declare that Carolyn Harris wedi ei iawn hethol has been duly elected. Diolch yn fawr.
It only seems like the other day that I was standing here and thanking the people of Swansea East for electing me. And then Mrs May decided to push her luck. And she's very sorry now. Swansea is red. The local authority, the Assembly, and in Westminster. Labour rules Swansea. I want to thank the people on the polling station. I want to thank the wonderful staff here. I want to thank Hugh and his staff. I want to thank the police, because we all know it's a really difficult time for them, and we were aware of that today, that they were out there for us. I want to thank my own team, who have been fantastic. I want to thank Swansea East Labour Party. I want to thank my fantastic agent, David Lloyd, and his even more fantastic wife, Cynthia, who lent him to me yet again. My husband, my son, my grandson, the woman next door, everybody. We made this our night. We are Labour!
Also in Llanelli, it was very much business as usual, as Labour MP Nia Griffith held on to a seat with over a 12,000 majority and also received over 53% of the vote. This is what she said after being elected.
Griffith Nia Rhiannon, 21,568. Daivig 1,568. I hereby declare that Nia Griffith is duly elected Member of Parliament for the said constituency.
Well, first and foremost, can I thank the returning officer and every member of staff who have really risen to the immense challenge of running this snap election at such short notice, straight after a full all-out council elections. I'd also like to thank the police for their role in the election. And I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for a fair and courteous competition. And I'd like to thank you, the electors of Llanelli, for the privilege of being re-elected to be your representative in Parliament. because first and foremost, it is my duty to represent every one of you, to speak up strongly on your behalf in the UK Parliament, and of course, to take a very keen and enthusiastic interest in many, many local issues. This evening, we have had some very interesting exit polls, and I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting and interesting night. But it's far too early yet to make any predictions. And first and foremost, as far as I'm concerned, I shall be concentrating on the Llanelli constituency, as I always have.
That's all your news for part 1. Stay with us here on BayTV as we bring more reaction from the general election results in the region. See you after the break. Hello and welcome back to a Channel 8 News election special on the day where the Conservatives were unable to get the majority they'd hoped for. It was, however, a celebration for Labour, with the First Minister Carwyn Jones joining the celebrations in Swansea, and he spoke about what the party would do now with supporting Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn after a successful evening for the party.
The answer to the first question is yes, we get behind Jeremy. It's too early yet to see what the future holds. The next few days, I'm sure there'll be discussions between parties to see what the future holds. In Wales, we're used to this. Westminster, less so. But what we do know is the Conservatives came into this election expecting a majority of over 100, and they haven't even got a majority. And that's a reflection on Theresa May and a reflection on their campaign.
Another strong Labour seat in the area was that of Stephen Kinnock, who was another MP to increase his vote from the 2015 election, on his way to winning 68.1% of the vote in Aberavon. The Labour MP almost had a 17,000 majority, as he got over 22,500 votes.
Kinnock, Stephen Nathan, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 22,662.
Where the Tories offered no real change or hope, we offered new access to justice and to opportunity. And that is why the young people of our country have asserted themselves democratically in such great numbers in this election. We have seen 7 years of incompetent and directionless Conservative government, followed by the most inept and dismal Tory election campaign in living memory. We in the Labour Party, on the other hand, fought an uplifting campaign based on a manifesto that was full of common sense, mainstream Labour policies. What a strong and exciting platform this gives us for the next 5 years, and I am greatly looking forward to working with my colleagues in Westminster. So tonight, my personal commitment to you, the people of Aberavon, is that I will build on that positive platform and carry out my responsibilities in a way that honours the trust that you have placed in me. No matter who you voted for in this election, I am your MP, and I will always strive to represent you in a way that is worthy of our community, worthy of a people who are as warm, as tough, as hard-working, as upfront, and as talented as any that you may wish to meet. It is my privilege to represent you, and I promise that I'll give you everything I've got. Thank you.
I'm really pleased. It's been a really good result. Somebody just said I got over 65% of the vote, I think, so it's a great victory, and I think it's a real tribute to the team. It's been a real team effort. We worked so hard, knocked so many doors, but not just knocking doors, it's also something that we've built over the last couple of years that I've been an MP, and I'm really excited to carry on, keep on doing the casework, working for the community, and also standing up in Westminster to ensure that the people of Aberavon have a voice in Parliament where it matters. Well, I think that the manifesto and Jeremy's leadership are absolutely intertwined. He showed the right leadership in putting forward a manifesto that was full of common sense, mainstream Labour policies. And as a result of that, I think we reached out into the centre ground in a way that we wouldn't have done if it had been a different kind of manifesto. So leadership is all about judgment, and the right judgments were made in terms of putting a package together in that manifesto which was attractive to people, which said we can change the country for the better, and we can talk about greater public ownership in our utilities, for example. Well, it's very early days to say that. I mean, I think we remember from 2015 where the exit poll wasn't quite right and the Tories did end up becoming having a governing majority. So I think we probably need to wait and see, but my understanding is that there's no speculation at all at the moment coming from any parties about forming a coalition. Everybody is fighting this to form a government, whether Labour could form a minority government or whether the Tories will try and do something along those lines. It just remains to be seen. What's vital is that we build on the platform that we have built through this manifesto, and that we bring the party together around that, those sensible, common sense, mainstream Labour policies, gives us a great platform to move forward, whatever the final result of this election is.
Neath was another constituency that the Labour Party did not only hold to their seat, but also increased the total vote by almost 13% as Christina Rees returns to Westminster, and she was very happy to receive over 21,700 votes.
That the number of votes cast for each candidate at the election for the Neath constituency was as follows. Little Frank, Welsh Liberal Democrats, Democrati Eiddfrid Fyddol Cymru, 732. Low Ola Sarah, Welsh Conservative Party candidate, and Geisydd Plaid Gaedwadol Cymru, 9082. Pritchard Richard Herbert, UKIP Wales, UKIP Cymru, 1419. Rees Christina Elizabeth, Labour and Cooperative Party, Llafer ar Blaid Gydweithredol, 21,713. Williams Daniel Gwyddion, Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, 5,339. Therefore, I give public notice that Christina Elizabeth Rees is duly elected as the Member of Parliament for the Neath constituency.
I find that this is a very moving moment for me. I never thought that that the win would be so substantial, and I'd like to thank you all. Most of all, I'd like to thank the people of Neath who have voted for me and put their faith in me. And I will work very hard for you and do my very best for you in the future. Thank you very much. I'm absolutely delighted with my result in Neath. I'm very proud to be re-elected the MP for Neath, and that the people have put their faith in me as their MP is just indescribable. You know, it's a dream come true again. The victory is I think it's about 3,500 up on last time. I've got a 12,600 majority now, which is unbelievable. Well, the results are still coming in, but we've held our seats that were targets for Tories. We've held Wrexham, we've held Clwyd South, we've held Bridgend, and I think we've taken Gower, which is one of the seats that we were targeting. So even though results are still coming in, I'm very positive that we've run the right sort of campaign.
And last but not least, we'll go to Carmarthen East and Dinefwr, where Plaid Cymru candidate Jonathan Edwards was looking to be re-elected, and that's exactly what happened, with Mr Edwards getting over 16,000 votes and a slight increase since the election in 2015. The Plaid Cymru MP took the opportunity during his speech to give his opinion on the government.
This election was called for purely cynical reasons, but if the exit polls are to be believed, it seems that the Prime Minister has made a massive miscalculation. If it is a hung Parliament, Plaid Cymru MPs will exert our influence to limit the damage of Brexit and advance the Welsh national interest. Our price will be high. No longer second-class status for Wales. Together, united, the possibilities for our country are endless, but only if we have faith in ourselves. Whereas the Unionist parties have a single mission to undermine our national self-confidence and sow division, it is our job in the national party of our country to make our people believe that together that we are the solution to our own problems. I look forward to pursuing that task with vigour during the next Parliament. Diolch yn fawr.
I think we've increased the percentage of the vote. The majority's gone down a bit, but this has been a very unusual election. You know, I've never seen anything like this in my life before, where you've got two lightweights leading the two main establishment parties in London, but yet the vote is polarised. So for Plaid Cymru to win any seat in that context is quite an incredible result for us. Well, I'm not one that tends to worry too much about politics until the day of the election, and then of course you face the judgment of the people, don't you? And that's how democracy works. And obviously there are a few nervous moments today, but we've worked so hard over the last 7 weeks since this election was called, and before then, of course, because we had the local authority elections. And the teams I've had working across the constituency for those 7 weeks, you know, I can't thank them enough. I wouldn't have won this election without the incredible contribution they've done over the last 7 weeks. Well, I think I got a very good record of being somebody who works extremely hard. You know, I was a local candidate. You know, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party both chose candidates from outside the constituency. They didn't really do much work in the constituency until the last week, whereas we've been working extremely hard, and we work extremely hard in between elections. And I think that people recognise the fact that we're a very hard-working team. Adam, Price, the Assembly member, myself, and all our councillors. And I think we get rewards for that on nights like this. If we didn't do that work, of course, we'd lose elections on nights like tonight.
And breaking news in the last few minutes, Theresa May has made a statement outside Downing Street confirming that she will form a new government and that she will remain as Prime Minister and the country needs some stability. Well, that's all your news for this week. Have a good weekend. Until next week, goodbye. good afternoon and welcome to Today on BayTV. We are live in Swansea on Friday, 9th of June 2017. I'm Carwyn Evans and this is Gaynor Morgan.
And I don't think anybody's had any sleep, have they, Carwyn? You've been up all night?
Yes, well, I think I last left about 5:30 yesterday morning, but we're getting there now.
I think most of the crew have been up all night. Christina's been up all night. Were you up all night, Craig?
I had a little bit of sleep, only a couple of hours though.
All that for hung Parliament, but I suppose you could say this is the day when history's made. Again.
Yeah. Well, this is it. And with Labour having success down in South West Wales, First Minister Carwyn Jones has been joining the celebration, and we've, well, got this clip of him talking a little bit earlier on today.
More of Theresa May in Wales in this campaign than we did in Jeremy Corbyn. What won this election for Labour in Wales? Was it him or was it the party?
For all the good it did. We ran the Welsh Labour campaign in Wales in tandem with the campaign across the rest of the UK. We listened, we worked hard, we produced a manifesto that people liked, and of course we saw us gaining seats in Wales.
Are you and all your fellow Labour colleagues fully 100% behind your leader now?
Yes, I am. Remember, this is not a competition. This is leaders of the different parts of the Labour Party in Britain working together to deliver the best for working people across the whole of the UK. We need to be united now as a party, reflect on the result, but let's face it, we had a tall mountain to climb and we did very well, particularly of course in the last few days.
Was that mountain despite Jeremy Corbyn because of it?
No, he helped us to get up that mountain. You have to give credit where credit's due. He had tremendous energy. He went around Britain, he listened to people. Young people were galvanised. The story of this election is young people came out to vote in levels I've never seen before. And the message from young people is, we need to be listened to. We need things to be done for us, and that's the challenge for us as a party, and I suspect every political party.
Nonetheless, Theresa May has gone to the Queen today. She's going to form a new government with the help of Ulster Unionists. Labour is in opposition.
The coalition of chaos reigns for Theresa May. She started this campaign where the campaign was built entirely around her, a 25-point lead, and she got to the point where there was only 2 points in it at the end of the day. People decided that they didn't want a personality cult, they didn't want a hard Brexit, we know that, so Brexit has to be handled in a sensible way. Well, the fact she's gone to see the Queen today is a sign that she just hasn't accepted the result and has no humility.
So what does a Labour Party now do under Jeremy Corbyn? Do you all get behind him? Do you all try and call for another election? What do you do now?
Well, the answer to the first question is yes, we get behind Jeremy. It's too early yet to see what the future holds. The next few days I'm sure there'll be discussions between parties to see what the future holds. In Wales we're used to this, Westminster less so, but what we do know is the Conservatives came into this election expecting a majority of over 100, and they haven't even got a majority, and that's a reflection on Theresa May and a reflection on their campaign.
Last question. In Wales 4 weeks ago there was talk even of a first-time Conservative majority. What has changed from your perspective in the last 2 weeks to turn that on its head?
For me, the turning point of the election was Theresa May turning up in Wrexham, making a mess of the issue of social care, which didn't actually affect people in Wales, but nevertheless she decided to make that speech in Wrexham. She took over the Welsh Conservative Party manifesto launch and pushed them out of the way, and things went downhill from there. From our perspective, we had a good manifesto, Welsh Labour manifesto, that complemented the UK Labour manifesto. We worked hard, yet we always know that elections are a challenge. We did this last year, we knew it this year, and you win elections by listening to people and putting forward a manifesto that addresses people's concerns, and we've seen the results today.
Carwyn Jones. And we have with us, of course, Christina Rees, who's retained Nice, and Craig Lawton. You were unsuccessful in Swansea West. I think Swansea's entirely Labour, isn't it? Christina, an awful lot of exhilaration on the part of Labour, but you didn't win.
No, but we did much better than we thought we would.
Is that good enough?
Yes. If you look at the polls, when we started this campaign, UK-wise we were in the low 20s. And then it rose to the high 30s and to the 40s. In Wales, we had a Scully poll right at the beginning that put us not even being the biggest party in Wales. And then that's turned around. We've gained Cardiff North, we've gained the Vale of Clwyd, and we've gained Gower.
And she is set on forming a minority government with the help of the DUP. Is that a good result?
For who? For her? No.
Is it a good result for us as a country?
Well, I mean, we have to wait to see. I mean, she's made a statement that she's going to do maybe a confidence and supply with the DUP, but we know that they've got 10, and she'll have to negotiate her way through that. And I don't think they share the same politics.
That's quite a technical term, and I think we'll perhaps talk about that later with some of our political gurus, the conference as well. Craig, now you were unsuccessful, as we said, in Swansea West. Theresa May seriously misjudged the mood of the nation.
Well, first and foremost, congratulations to Christina, who's with me on your re-election. You know, the opinion polls, we've seen sort of one way, we've seen them go the other way. I think what we've learned is that you can't second-guess the British public. I know on a local level, we were out there working hard, talking to people, and I was finding lots of people that were coming from Labour to the Conservatives. Clearly, though, there were more people going from other parties to Labour as well in some places. What's interesting, though, is that we're still the largest party in the whole of the United Kingdom, but clearly people were very split. Some people wanted Labour, other people wanted the Conservatives. The other parties have totally fallen away. I think it was a very polarised election.
Given the clear mood of the country, is it really wise or conciliatory of the Prime Minister to talk about forming a government now with the DUP? Shouldn't she really be talking to Labour? There's been such a resurgence in terms of Labour.
Well, first and foremost, we need a government. Whatever colour that is, the country needs a government. We've been without a parliament for a number of weeks now, and we need that parliament to hold the government to account. If the Labour Party want to try and get through their own Queen's speech, that's perfectly up to them, and that will be for members of Parliament to decide which of those they'll back. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister, and she's the leader of the party with the most members of Parliament. So constitutionally, she has the first opportunity to see if she can form a government.
That's the confidence and supply we touched on. We'll talk about that later.
And then, Craig, a few Conservative MPs have questioned Theresa May's leadership now and her position within the party and the government. Where do you stand on that? Do you think she's still the right person to lead the country, having taken the Conservatives into this election and not delivering what she'd hoped?
Well, I'd say she is still the Prime Minister. Unfortunately, I wasn't elected as a Member of Parliament, so when it comes to discussing who the leader of our party will be, it will be for the Members of Parliament to decide first and foremost. First of all, as I say, we need a government and we need a Prime Minister, and we need to know where we stand. There may well be discussions by other parties and other things in the coming weeks, but we need a government first and foremost so that the country can move forward.
I think, could I just say that, the reason that she said she called the election was about Brexit, and she has a smaller mandate now. So I'm really worried about the Brexit issue, because Europe will look at the Conservative government when they do form a government and think, well, they're wounded, they're damaged. So they'll feel in a superior position when it comes to negotiating Brexit.
Now, really, can't it? We've got a whole programme to discuss it all. Karen, how did the night unfold? I was in bed with my radio, but...
well, it's sort of...
Too much information.
It was sort of early on in Swansea, as in, I know Craig was confident early in the night, thinking that you'd done enough really to challenge Geraint, and I think in the Gower seat, Tonya was feeling confident that she'd done enough to challenge Byron, and there was a bit of buzz in Swansea really, and same in Neath, as in I think Christina and Stephen were smiling early on, and I don't think those smiles disappeared throughout the night, but I can't remember exactly what time it was, because every hour sort of rolls into one now, but especially in Swansea anyway, it seemed like the buzz was behind the Labour Party, and they were really gaining momentum, and when the results did come out, then that's what was sort of proven really, that they
we worked hard for that though, Caroline. We've been once the election was announced, we've been out there knocking doors, having conversations. I've been all over Wales visiting all 40 constituencies and motivating the troops, and we were still out knocking doors at 9 o'clock last night.
At what point during the night did you realise that the things were going as well as they did for you?
Pretty much when the results started coming in. And it had a bit of a 1997 feel about it, because I remember that, and the wave of red that swept through the UK. And when the results kept coming in, that we were gaining seats, and then there was a rumour that we'd got Gower, and a rumour that we'd got Vale of Clwyd, which I was hoping. The evidence on the ground was there. But Cardiff North was a surprise, because it's so unpredictable, that seat,
Before we go into break, just briefly, Craig, at what point did you ever realise that it would come to this in terms of the Conservative Party today?
Well, when we got the exit poll, it was interesting reading. As I say, everything I'd heard on the doorstep told me that we were going to gain votes, and I'm really pleased with the extra votes. We got 11,680 is more than I've ever got.
Thank you both for joining us. Anyway, we're heading for a break. Lots more to talk about after the break with two political gurus joining us. So
I'm heading out, but Henry will be jumping in. See you again.
Welcome back to Today on BayTV. I'm Gaynor Morgan. With me is Henry Darby Cook, also Matt Wall, political guru from Swansea University, and of course Christina Rees, who successfully retained Nice. Here we are on the day that history was made. Again.
That's what they're saying.
Matt, first if we can come to you, what's your take on the events of the night?
Well, I think you'd have to say it's spectacular backfiring for Theresa May. I mean, the whole purpose of this election was to bolster her majority, and now she's emerged without a majority of her own at all. So you'd have to say it's an enormous politically damaging moment for Theresa May. She's just come out and said that she intends to form a government with the support of the DUP, but she's a reduced figure in British politics. I think that's the headline. Labour have performed, as you were talking about earlier, much better than the polling expected. So Jeremy Corbyn is, strengthened his position as a leader of the party. So that's the scenario.
Christina Rees, you've worked phenomenally hard. You didn't win, but you've done extraordinarily well. On a personal level, do you feel for Theresa May at all?
No, I think that she took a risk in calling the election, and she read it wrong. She relied on the polls, and we know how very risky that is to rely on polls. They were proved wrong before. But at a personal level, I think she's lost credibility.
A lot of people are talking on Twitter this morning about arrogance is her biggest weakness. Would you agree with that?
I tend not to attack people, personally. I just think if you look at the facts, she took a calculated gamble and lost.
Yeah, I'd say hubris rather than arrogance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that she was Prime Minister. She was looking after the country, and she's taken that gamble, that risk, and the country is diminished because of that risk. In Europe and in the world, I think. Man.
Just look at the value of the pound. The pound has slumped quite dramatically against the dollar and the euro.
But shares have risen, haven't they?
I mean, well, the pound is a good indicator of Britain's kind of, people's
standing in the world,
people's ideas about how Britain's going to perform.
What are the options now? Labour, as I've said, are pretty cock-a-hoop and exhilarating. Jerry Corbyn, he played a blinder, whatever your politics. But they didn't win. Theresa May is still the Prime Minister, as you say, diminished on the world stage and perhaps locked into an unholy marriage with the DUP.
Yeah, well, what we're probably looking at is what's called a confidence and supply agreement.
Yeah,
so that came up earlier in the show. So confidence just means that you'll back up the government on fundamental matters that ensure survival, the Queen's speech, motions of no confidence. Supply means what the DUP gets. Now, we don't know for sure what that is, but the supply side of it probably means extra resources from Northern Ireland.
So the confidence and supply link is with the DUP?
Yes.
Why couldn't that be with Labour?
Well, because they're fundamentally, ideologically opposed.
Yeah. Absolutely opposed.
And yet the people have spoken in a sense. There was a great resurgence of support for Labour.
Yes, but we don't share the same values as the Conservative Party.
The DUP and the Conservative Party are kind of natural allies. Right. They were really the only option in the Parliament for the Conservative Party. All the other parties would tend towards Labour support, I think it's safe to say.
And isn't there an option for an alternative Queen's speech? Is that right?
Well, the option is there.
And what does that mean?
That means that Labour produces its own Queen's speech. Theresa May has to produce hers by the 19th of June.
I believe so, yeah.
So she's on a very short time scale.
But she will do that.
Well, if she has the numbers, that'll go through. If she has a majority with the 10 seats from the DUP, that puts her over the threshold for a majority. And don't forget that Sinn Féin will abstain. So it's actually the working majority.
They never take up their seats, do they?
No,
Westminster?
there was some speculation that they would overnight, but they've said this morning that they won't. So that's 7 seats that are just gone, basically.
Did you expect anything like this?
I did not, no. I mean, I could have made quite a lot of money gambling on it. It was about 6-1, no majority, just before the exit polls came out. So nobody expected it. Expectation was about a 70-seat lead for the Conservative Party. So the pollsters, the betting markets, and most of the pundits completely misread the situation, as you said.
Yeah. A lot of people are saying that the young people turned out, that Jeremy Corbyn did get the young people to turn out. Is that how you read it, Henry?
Yeah, so 72% is the figure that's been bandied about of 18 to 24-year-olds. And I think it's an amazing turnout, and it was, exactly what I think was needed for this resurgence of, being involved in politics and being engaged in it.
It may be just this part of the world, because we say Swansea's now red. But I feel, talking to people, there's an optimism that wasn't there after the referendum. The people who won the referendum were happy, but we didn't have this sense of a new world.
I think you're absolutely right, because many youngsters voted in Nice for the first time, and they were proud of it. Lots of people wanted to have a selfie with me because they were voting for the first time, and the optimism is there. The turnout in Neath was amazingly high. In the postal votes, there were like 80% returned of postal votes.
Wow.
You know, people wanted to get there, wanted to vote first. And I was knocking doors last night, and they were saying, we've been, you know, we've already been.
I suppose that obviously there are very, very clear objectives that the government has to focus on, but tangentially, in a sense, it's important that young people don't go sour over this, that cynicism doesn't come in, and that their optimism isn't
I think they
dimmed.
liked our manifesto.
Yeah,
Matt.
I think there was a clear offer for young people.
A clear offer in our manifesto, which has gone down well with all age ranges. Whereas, and it's fully costed, which was always the point that the Tories tried to make. Oh, you haven't costed. How are you going to pay for it? It was fully costed. Whereas with the Tory manifesto, I mean, they went for pensioners and they went for young people and school children.
Well, I think as well, all the research says voting is a habit. So all these people who voted for the first time, now they know where the polling station is. It's actually quite easy to vote. And all of a sudden, hopefully they'll be retained in the electorate. I mean, that, whatever you think about the policies, and obviously you have your opinion, it's great that so many young people vote. It's absolutely vital for our democracy.
I voted for the first time yesterday.
Did you?
I know that's really bad, isn't it? But because we've been in university and not been able to get home at the right times, it was the first time I was had my address in Swansea and I voted. And actually, I lost my polling card the day before. I was so stressed, so I went there early to make sure I could still vote. And I thought, oh yeah, of course you can.
Yeah.
And it was the easiest thing in the world. And it was actually, really satisfying.
I think that's a really good point, because under the old voter registration system, you could register people on block or family households. Now it's individual registration, so a lot of students have to go that extra mile to register themselves.
On the other hand, you can do it online nearly instantaneously. So, I mean, a group of my students were on the campus enrolling people on the register, and we were doing it literally 2 or 3 minutes at a time. And I think once people realise that, once you've done that process once, you're registered and you know where to go to vote. Hopefully, and I'm sure Labour are hoping, that young people will continue to vote, and that would be fantastic.
But there's a lot of exhilaration, as I've said today, but is anything going to change? Because I felt, and we're the same sort of age, Christina, and completely impartially, I felt that I grew up in a world post-war where I felt safe. I felt the world was a fair place. If you had the gifts to improve yourself, you could. It didn't really cost you any money, and you had to look after people who are less fortunate. I don't think that stands today for our young people, and that worries me.
What we're offering the country is investment, and we do need it. We need investment in the country, in jobs, in growth, in businesses, in all sorts of things. And that would bring jobs, and with jobs comes security.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger picture is we're seeing computers are taking a lot of people's jobs, so we need to create like a whole new set of industries here in the UK and across the world.
Is this election going to change anything?
I mean, an election can only do so much, you know what I mean? But also, what we're probably looking at, to be honest, is another election pretty soon, because this arrangement is while Theresa May said it was very secure and all about stability, it's not secure. It's not secure. A smaller majority means less secure government, fundamentally, more likelihood of an election.
And we are diminished on the world stage.
Well, Theresa May's campaign, her personal campaign, didn't go well. So she ran the whole thing about her strong and stable leadership, as we all know. Her personal approval ratings plummeted during the course of the campaign, and so her going to Brussels now to negotiate inevitably is diminished.
And what of Brexit?
What of Brexit?
What, is it still to be decided in 10 days, 11 days? Surely not.
Well, she has to form a government first.
To form a government. I mean, there's been various reactions from European negotiators on Twitter, some saying that it has to happen in 10 days as scheduled, others saying that there's flexibility. So at the moment we're in a bit of a cloud about that.
Nigel Farage this morning said a second referendum has to happen.
Well, he's probably going for leadership of UKIP again because Paul Nettle has stood down. How do you read that, man?
Well, I think it's hard to know what the internal politics of UKIP are. UKIP is the other big story of the election at the start, I should have mentioned, is UKIP are massively diminished, down to about 2% of the electorate.
And yet in their terms, look what they've achieved.
Well, that's
they haven't achieved it yet, have they?
That's the issue. the Conservatives absorbed a lot of their votes, but Labour did surprisingly well in the UKIP demographic. So what does that all mean? I mean, for Nigel Farage, I have no idea what he's going to go back or not.
It means there's lots more to talk about.
There's so many dimensions.
So much
Thank you both. We've got still half the programme to go. So
we're subbing both of them out. Matt's leaving for Sam and Christina's leaving for Rob. Stay with us on BayTV and we'll see you in a minute.
all good fun.
Welcome back to Today on BayTV. I'm Henry Jobby Cook. Next to me is Gaynor Morgan. Rob Stewart, the Swansea Council leader, is with me, and Sam Blaxland has also joined us. Bear with me, I've been up for 30 hours, I think now. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't up, but I was listening to the radio through the night. It was compulsive, wasn't it?
It was a very, very unique night last night. I think we haven't seen the like of that sort of result, I think, for about 40 years. You know, it takes us back to the results of 1974. It's going to be a very interesting few months, I think, ahead of us.
I was interested in politics in 1974.
Yeah. Well, will we have a second 74 like they did then? Will we have the second election within months?
Can you give us a quick recap? What happened then?
Oh, well, I mean, it was a disaster for Theresa May, in essence. And to call an election an opportunistic election for your own benefit and then to lose it will mean, I assume, that she'll be gone within days, weeks, months maximum, and she'll go down as probably the worst Prime Minister in modern British history.
Wow.
No, well, clearly, you know, I mean, she had nothing to lose and all to gain. But to my mind, it's a symptom of an excellent Labour campaign. All those polls suggesting that the Tories were doing well a couple of weeks ago, I don't think that was built on foundations of sand. I think they probably were doing quite well, but there were certain things that the Conservatives did very badly, but there were certain things that the Labour Party did really well.
And yet everybody, including the Labour Party, missed the signs of a great leader in Jeremy Corbyn.
I don't think it was merely that. I think the point here was, look, when we launched our manifesto, it was a very populist manifesto. It was absolutely putting us front and centre in terms of there is a different future for this country if you want to vote for it.
But he came alive.
He did in a way that he didn't come alive in the European Union referendum, incidentally. But that's another story.
But I do agree. I mean, I think Theresa May gambled and lost on this one. She is now hold below the waterline. How long is the question she can hang on for? But, you know, going into coalition or even a supply arrangement with the DUP, that's not going to last for very long because there are some real interesting issues to be overcome with that party because they are pretty right-wing.
Sam, tell us a bit more about the DUP. That's what's it?
The Democratic Unionist Party. It's Northern Ireland, and whilst they're not the Conservatives in Northern Ireland, they are essentially very similar to them. It's the party of Ian Paisley. Ian Paisley Senior, who's dead recently, a lot of people know, but his son, Ian Paisley Junior, is one of the MPs who'll be returning to Westminster. He's probably the most
very right wing then.
Notable. Well, it depends how you define very right wing. I mean, they certainly are on the right. They're similar to some of the more right wing Tory MPs. Ian Paisley, for example, was quite an ardent Brexiteer, but in the same way that your likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg, Nigel Evans from Swansea were, you know, similar kinds of characters in that regard. It may well work, and in all fairness, it is the way that the arithmetic is working. It is, whether you like it or not, the most sensible option to do because it makes the numbers work just, and in terms of ideology, they are the most similar.
There are some ideological facts that we can't align with. But I think you were saying, Rob, that there are some things in terms of Brexit that would be difficult for the Conservatives to work with.
Yeah, they're on record as the DUP is saying that they don't believe in a hard Brexit. They want a more sensible Brexit.
Which would be better for us in Wales.
It is, but it's different from what Theresa May went to the country with. So again, you know, her credibility is shot to pieces, and I don't see how she, personally, long-term, can negotiate a deal for Britain. Her currency is lost, you know. If she's going to be sitting there or with David Davis in front of the Europeans, how does she have a negotiating position now that's credible? She doesn't.
Can't come up with a softer Brexit if she has to rely on the DUP.
But that's not what she offered the country.
No, but she was a Remainer originally, allegedly.
Well, a very quiet one. What's very interesting about the whole thing is that, you know, I was down in Gower this morning, which was taken by the Labour Party. But the atmosphere amongst the Labour people I've spoken to is as if they've won. It's really quite remarkable. Yes, and in many ways they performed superbly and certainly against expectations. And the swing and the number of votes and the percentage of the vote are all really, really impressive.
I think we've actually got some graphs to show the difference from the 2015 election in Gower to obviously last night's. So here's 2015 on your screens now.
Yeah, it couldn't have been closer.
How many seats was it?
27 votes majority for Byron Davis last time. But if you look at it, you know, the collapse in the Lib Dem vote in 2015 would have been very significant there as well. It was a strange election. I mean,
we can't say anything there, but it's 104 now, yes.
And then there's 2017.
Labour's got a lead of 104. I think. But it was Labour for 100 years, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely, and it was a bit of a fluke, I think, that it went
Yes.
Conservative in the first place. But it's very significant, it's very symbolic that it's come back to Labour this time. But it is interesting for me that there is this, I mean, all the Labour people I've seen this morning, including you, Rob, seem quite upbeat, you know. It seems to be a good news, but ultimately it is the Conservatives who are going to form the government. Mrs May stays for now the Prime Minister.
I have to say, I don't think it's just the Labour people that are upbeat. I think that when I was down at Verdi's this morning with Karen and the team down there, as you showed earlier, I think there's a general buzz around at the moment that actually the future that was being proposed by the Tories may not be the one that we're now heading for.
Although there was a referendum vote in favour of coming out of Europe, there is a feeling that things are being imposed on people that they aren't really happy with.
Well, the European Union thing is interesting. In many ways, if you look at the results that have come through from this election, in some places it seems to have been a bit of a rerun of the referendum. So very, very sort of heavy Remain areas like London have voted Labour. Although it is all a bit topsy-turvy. It's not that's not guaranteed. Monmouth, we were saying before we came on, Monmouth just about voted on the whole to stay in the European Union, and yet David Davis, the Conservative MP there, who was an ardent Brexiteer, won excellently last night. And yet, in a very similar seat, Pembrokeshire or Preseli, Pembrokeshire, it was three. It was it had to go to a recount. It was it really wasn't
for the Conservatives.
Yes, and it really wasn't. It wasn't simple.
But I think one of the interesting dynamics in this one, this was obviously a young person's election as well. I think the youth vote that's come out this time. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the commentators was saying earlier, the fact that young people have spoken this time, and many of them didn't like the decision that was made by the general public in terms of Brexit.
They blamed the oldies.
No, but they've actually got their voice heard this time, and I think that's one of the interesting dynamics here, is actually young people have got engaged in politics, which is a great thing, and made their voice heard.
And credit to your leader as well for going out there. And the campaign was positive, it was engaging in that sense, and the Conservative campaign was just so negatively driven.
Well, I think it was documented that Theresa May and the Conservative Party's Facebook and Twitter didn't post once.
Register to vote once. No. But that's realpolitik, isn't it? That's party politics.
But going forward, in a sense, a sort of Pandora's box has been opened now, hasn't it? How do you see things panning out, Sam, with your...
I think there's no other way to see it other than we'll have to have another general election. This reminds me so much...
As soon as 6 weeks, it's saying on Twitter.
Well, Theresa May won't stay the Prime Minister. I think the only reason she's walked back into Downing Street with that kind of stern face on today is not to do an Ed Miliband. This is going to be a steady hand on the tiller.
And also David Cameron was roundly criticised, wasn't he?
For walking away too soon. But the parallels with going back into being a historian again, but the parallels with 1974 here, where we had two elections, February and October, are really quite significant. Ted Heath went to the country on one issue particularly, who governs, who rules. People said, not you really. Harold Wilson came in, and then in the next election got a bigger majority, so that might be a template for the Labour Party to follow.
But in terms of Brexit, that was supposed to have been the core issue. It wasn't in the end, really. What happens now? How do you see things? Either of you, really?
Well, for me, I mean, if Theresa May is going to try and govern with a minority government, it's going to be very difficult for her to achieve anything, I think. Her personal credibility, as I said, is undermined. She's a time-limited PM now. Very much so. So it's going to be the question a bit, how quickly will the Tory party replace her? Because that's what they're going to be doing in the background.
And whatever your politics is, whether you're tribal, Labour or Conservative, I think everybody would agree that a majority in Parliament is what's needed, at least to go forward in the Brexit talks. You can't enter these talks with being in a minority government. It's very unstable.
So when would you say there'd be another election?
Oh, here we go. I'm really, really bad at the forecasting, as I've proved on here before. But I would say, I mean, what are we now? Potentially before the end of the year. Or maybe early in the new year.
And that brings everything into question, doesn't it? Brexit, how can we...
I think it'll be a little bit longer than that, because I think what they will attempt to do now is to go and get some sort of deal with Europe and then bring that back as a test for a general election.
Is Europe going to be wanting to help us? We have got Macron in France now, who's very pro-European. He might want to keep us in, might he?
Well, I think it's all to play for now. I think the point here is we have a mandate from the British public to go off and negotiate with Europe a different type of arrangement. It's what that different type of arrangement's going to look like. And I think, as I've said before in the programme, I think when the deal is known by the British people, they're going to have to take a view whether it's what they thought they voted for. And we know that there were a load of lies told on both sides in terms of the campaign for the referendum. I think when the people see the deal, it's going to be a very interesting position to take.
There was a lot of fudge and misinformation, and that may well have been a factor in the results of this election now.
It's been fudge and misinformation, not just on Brexit. you know, the Conservative campaign was wobbly all the way through. And at least with Jeremy Corbyn, even though he was putting forward some quite big, bold policies that didn't necessarily cost up, he was talking, you know, about hope and about engagement. He was using just that kind of the language and rhetoric matters in politics, and he did that much better than Theresa May.
This is going to run and run, isn't it? This is a story that's going to run. So we're going into a break now, and I wonder what we'll be talking about after the break.
I think Caroline Harris is going to join us. We'll see you in a minute.
And welcome back to Today on BayTV. It's been such a quick programme today.
It's blown.
I'm Kana Morgan. This is Henry Darby Cook. We have with us, of course, Rob Stewart, Leader of the Council, and Carolyn Harris,
Hello.
who's successfully in Swansea East for Labour. And I think perhaps before any more ado, we can see you actually accepting.
Harris Carolyn, Welsh Labour, Llafur Cymru, 22,307. 22,307. Ac yr wyf drwy hyn yn datgan bod, and I hereby declare that Carolyn Harris wedi ei iawn hethol has been duly elected. Diolch yn fawr.
It only seems like the other day that I was standing here and thanking the people of Swansea East for electing me. And then Mrs May decided to push her luck. And she's very sorry now. Swansea is red. The local authority, the Assembly, and in Westminster. Labour rules Swansea. I want to thank the people at the polling station. I want to thank the wonderful staff here. I want to thank Hugh and his staff. I want to thank the police, because we all know it's a really difficult time for them, and we were aware of that today, that they were out there for us. I want to thank my own team, who have been fantastic. I want to thank Swansea East Labour Party. I want to thank my fantastic agent, David Lloyd, and his even more fantastic wife, Cynthia, who lent him to me yet again. My husband, my son, my grandson, the woman next door, everybody. We made this our night. We are Labour!
I really need to work on my confidence.
Sounded like you won the Oscars.
I did.
It must have been a tremendous feeling.
It was wonderful, absolutely fantastic. It was the best feeling in the world for me, but to take back Gower was absolutely out of this world.
Were you presumably you were expecting to win in your own seat, but were you expecting this resurgence in terms of Labour UK-wide?
No candidate expects to win. Any candidate who goes into an election thinking I've won this shouldn't be a candidate. So even when I saw the piles on the table, I had to be told by people, yes, you have won it, but I needed to hear it. Am I surprised at the resurgence? No, because since this campaign have started, we've been out knocking doors, we've been meeting people. I've been to so many events and community centres and organisations, and everybody was saying the same. There's time for change. It's time for us to have back something. People in Swansea East, people in Swansea, people in Gower, they need to know that they got people who care for them, looking after them, and that's not what they've had from the Tory government.
How are you going to take this forward in Parliament? Because Theresa May did win the election.
Did she? I think Theresa May has personally lost a massive amount of credibility. I think the Tory party have lost a massive amount of credibility, and to get into bed with the DUP will do them no favours, and I think you'll find people ripping up their membership cards. It's absolutely shocking.
Is that the way you read it, Rob?
Yeah, as I said, I think Theresa May gambled on the basis that she put the Tory party before the needs of the nation. This was her gambling to try and get a bigger majority for the Tory party in the country. That hasn't paid off. She's now in a much weaker position. As I said, she's a time-limited PM. The Labour Party is now the stable force in Westminster, and Carolyn and the rest of the guys who are going to go back there will be doing a fantastic job and will hold this minority government to account.
In Theresa May's defence, I did feel that the Conservatives were bent on stealing UKIP's clothes, as it were, and obviously that was good for the Conservative Party, and they felt that was good for the country. I mean, is there not?
No, that was lies. I mean, it's party politics dressed up as national politics, and that's what it was. Theresa May, if you remember, had the mandate to go and negotiate with Europe. She had a majority, a bigger one than she's got now. She had everything she needed to get on and do the job in terms of negotiating Brexit. She knew that some of her own members were likely going to destabilise that. It wasn't about the other parties because she could overrule and outvote the other parties. This was her gambling for party political reasons, nothing else. She did exactly the same as Cameron did. It's another Tory Prime Minister putting the Tory party before the needs of the nation, and she lost in the same way that he lost.
And yet she's in power. So how do you see things panning out?
I don't think she is in power, because if she's reliant on the DUP for every decision to get through Parliament, how is she in power? She's having to compromise what she believes in with a party who a lot of people in this country would find quite distasteful on the kinds of agenda that they follow. So she's a puppet. She's a puppet to the right wing.
Can I just, I think, Geoffrey Howe's statement for John Major's government applies now. There's a difference between it being in office and being in power. And I think Theresa May's in office currently. She's not in power.
That's very interesting. What is it about the DUP that worries you? What are they?
Well, they're extremely right-wing, and they're Catholic with a capital C. There's a lot of... They're very anti-LGBT, which I find abhorrent. I mean, the list can go on and on and on, but they're not the kinds of... compassionate people in terms of politics, which the people in this country will find it's regressive politics.
And yet they are in favour of a softer Brexit. That would work for Wales.
But only because it works for Ireland. I mean, they're not putting anyone else other than their own country.
That's the scenario we've got. If it works for Wales, we could welcome it.
But we've got to think about the United Kingdom and the United Kingdom, as in the four union.
That's the other aspect that I think we haven't touched on. This was a vote against independence for Scotland as well, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
That's healthy.
Well, look, I mean, it was another thing about Theresa May's argument that didn't seem to stack up. She wanted us to keep the nation together. She didn't want Scotland to leave, but yet she wanted to pull us out of Europe. Inconsistent arguments again from an inconsistent Prime Minister.
Was there a real concern about Scotland becoming independent, do you think?
I think in Scotland there was, and we've seen that from the TV debate, that there was an appetite amongst the SNP for it, but that wasn't reflected across the country, and I think we saw that last night. We took seats back in Scotland, which I'm delighted about, to see that Labour are now represented in Scotland. But for me, Theresa May was an opportunist. She thought that she was going to go to the polls at a time when she saw her party and her own personal popularity as being riding so high that she could arrogantly just walk back in, and that hasn't happened.
In fairness, Jeremy Corbyn appeared to be a shambles, and he clearly wasn't.
Well, I rest my case on that one, because I think what Jeremy Corbyn has managed to pull off over the last few weeks, nobody ever expected he would do this.
As Sam Blackson, our political guru from Swansea University, was telling us earlier that he feels, and I think, did you feel the same, that there will be another general election? Is that your reading?
Well, I think Theresa May take a further kicking if it is, because the people of this country are fed up to the back teeth of elections. They should let the Labour Party put forward our own Queen's speech and leave us take over the ruling of this country.
Is that achievable?
It could be. It's something that we have to discuss. And if she can't get a Queen's speech through Parliament, yes, it's quite achievable.
Do you see that, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly going to be an election shortly. It'll be one for the leader of the Tory party. That's coming up. It depends what they do after that. And as I said, my view is they'll probably call some sort of election once they know what the deal is on Europe.
What would you put in an alternative Queen's speech?
Well, it's the Labour manifesto, and it's a much better manifesto. It's costed.
For the people.
It is for the people. You look at the Tory manifesto, and it's a mess.
I mean, we're not going to be robbing pensioners. No, the WASPy women, they will have justice. We're going to make sure that students are not saddled with debt. Winter fuel allowance will stay there. It's a social agenda for the United Kingdom.
Interesting times, I think, Henry.
It is, yeah. In the final moments, Rob, obviously Labour very successful in the local elections, now very successful in the general elections. Just what does this mean for the city?
Well, it's the best possible result. I mean, as Carolyn said in her acceptance speech last night, Swansea has now become a full Labour stronghold. We've taken back Gower, but we've got a great Labour team. We work together, councillors with AMs and with MPs. We've got Campaigner of the Year in Carolyn Harris in Swansea East. We have a great Labour team, and we will be delivering for the people of Swansea.
Thank you both. Thank you to all
Thank
our
you
guests
both
today
so much.
and to all our viewers for watching us.
We'll be back on Monday. I wonder what we'll be talking about.
We'll see you after the weekend. Have a good one.